Like before, keep the autopilot and auto thrust engaged with the levers in the climb detent. Welcome to the stratosphere. In the 1950s, airlines used propeller aeroplanes which had a maximum altitude of rarely more than 30,000 feet. Weather systems and cloud buildups can easily outclimb these now vintage aircraft, putting your cruising altitude in amongst the turbulence, icing and clouds. The jet engine changed all of this. With a great leap forwards in power, greater speeds and altitudes were now within reach. Our A320 can go up to 39,000 feet, whilst other types can climb as high as 45,000 feet. Flying higher has some distinct advantages. It puts us above all but the very tallest thunderstorms, giving a smoother ride. The thinner air also means we have less aerodynamic drag, so we cover ground much more quickly than at lower levels. We can see evidence of this rarefied atmosphere by comparing our indicated airspeed with our true airspeed. Looking at the speed tape on the PFD, it's reading about 270 knots. Now look at the top left corner of the navigation display, ND, and see a true airspeed of 440. The difference between these two speeds is all to do with the drop in air density with altitude. To understand this, we need to touch upon how an airspeed indicator works. The airspeed indicator is essentially a pressure gauge, detecting the force of the air hitting the nose of the aeroplane. The higher the pressure reading, the higher the airspeed indication. This works fine at low levels, but up here in the higher atmosphere, the air is so much thinner that it causes the airspeed indicator to underread. True airspeed is corrected for altitude, so shows a much more accurate indication of our speed through the air. The skies are busier than ever, so ATC often give us heading changes to maintain our separation from other airliners.
Jetliner 488, turn left 20 degrees for spacing and report the heading.
Left 20 degrees onto heading 150, Jetliner 488. Turn the heading knob and select a heading of 150, pulling to select heading mode. Another method of keeping aeroplanes apart is by allocating a speed to maintain. Because of the airspeed-altitude complications we touched on earlier, indicated airspeed isn't a consistent method for en route speed control. Instead, we use another measurement of speed called our Mach number. Mach number is our speed in relation to our local speed of sound. Whilst the speed of sound varies with altitude, it remains useful for keeping traffic separation. Mach 1 is equal to the speed of sound at our current altitude. Mach 0.7 is 70% of the speed of sound, and so on. Now the speed target is in Mach mode.
Jetliner 488, Mach 0.74 or less due traffic.
Mach 0.74 or less, Jetliner 488. Turn the speed knob and select Mach 0.74. Now you'll see the thrust reduce and the Mach number reduce, shown at the bottom left of the PFD.
Jetliner 488, own navigation direct to Gaiac.
Direct to Gaiac, Jetliner 488. Alright, let's get back onto our flight plan route. We've been cleared to Gaiac. Press the direct button on the FMGC and enter Golf Alpha India using the FMGC's keyboard. Once GAI is in your scratch pad at the bottom of the screen, click the very top left button to enter Gaiac as a temporary waypoint. This will make a yellow line on the ND appear pointing to Gaiac. Press the bottom right line key where it says direct. That's it. Now push the heading knob on the FCU to engage nav mode. Good. Now we're turning towards Gaiac and returning to our flight plan route.
Dis-moi quelque chose. Comment tu as
Jetliner
su?
488,
Je veux
clear
dire,
of
qui t'a
traffic,
enseigné
free
ça?
speed.
Free speed, Jetliner 488. Our Mach number speed limit has been cancelled. Select Mach 0.78. Now watch how long it takes us to accelerate at this altitude. With these high altitudes, slowing down was no trouble. Speeding up, however, can take a while.
Elle a raison.
Good job. Let's pick this up once we're getting nearer to our top of descent.
Tu parles comme une cible. Va me tuer maintenant? Il n'y a aucune honte à avoir, putain. Tu ne sentiras rien. Et je me sens nerveux. Oh.
We're just levelling off at flight level 350 as we await further descent clearance. Let's look at how we manage descending from high altitudes. Descending an airliner from the cruise is an exercise in energy management. To descend most efficiently, we use a couple of rules of thumb that first calculate at what mileage to start our descent, and then another to monitor our progress on the way down. We're looking to start the descent at the right moment and then get us to lower altitudes as seamlessly as possible, with minimum levelling off in between. Choosing the right moment to start going down allows us to stay in the cruise for as long as possible, where we're flying most efficiently. Our first rule of thumb is to divide our flight level by 3 to get the distance at which we should start descending. If we're roughly at flight level 360, dividing by 3 gives 120. This means we'd want to start our descent when 120 miles from our destination. If we were cruising at flight level 300, dividing by 3 gives 100, meaning 100 nautical miles would be our descent point. You can quickly estimate our miles to go by looking at the range arcs on the navigation display. At the moment, we have about 130 nautical miles to go, so we know we'll need to start descending in roughly 10 miles. Of course, this calculates only when we would ideally begin descending, but ATC requirements and other traffic will complicate matters.
Maintenant, je pense différemment.
Jetliner 488 requests further descent.
Jetliner 488, roger, call you back, traffic below.
It's very common to have to delay descent if there is another aircraft passing underneath us, or to keep us within controlled airspace. In this case, we turn our attention to energy management, which is the control of the aeroplane's inertia. Reducing our airspeed in anticipation of a descent reduces our energy and allows us to trade altitude for speed once we do start descending. Use the Speed Mac button to switch back to speed mode and select 230 knots. The thrust now comes back and we decelerate, losing energy.
J'avoue que tu me déçois, Robert. Normalement, tu devais la tuer.
Now that we're travelling less quickly, we're covering fewer miles whilst we wait for further descent clearance and can wind the speed back up again once we start going down. Just like open climb, open descent sets idle thrust and uses pitch to achieve our target speed. Starting slow and then setting a higher speed target once we start descending will make the nose drop and give us a steeper descent angle, regaining our desired profile.
Jetliner 488, descend flight level 200.
Descending flight level 200, Jetliner 488. Okay, set 20,000 in the FCU altitude window and pull the Alt knob. Now see how the auto thrust sets idle power and the nose is lowered in open descent mode. With a low airspeed, our drag is also relatively low, giving only a moderate descent rate. Now increase the selected speed to 290 knots and see what happens. With idle power, the nose is lowered further to achieve our target speed, increasing our descent rate. Rather than using the speed brakes, this is the more efficient way of descending more quickly, saving fuel and reducing both vibration and noise.
Putain de chaleur aujourd'hui, hein?
Torride.
Conversely, if you want to shallow off the descent, reduce the speed target and the nose will be raised. Let's try this. Select a speed of 270 knots. The nose is raised to slow us to our lower speed target, and our vertical speed reduces a lot at first. Now that our target speed is reached, the nose will lower slightly to maintain this new speed, but our vertical speed will be a little less than before. If you want to reduce your descent rate but don't wish to decelerate, you can also consider using vertical speed mode.
Alors? Maintenant, quoi? Terminer quelque chose que tu n'as pas terminé il y a des années.
We're going to be entering the cloud, so let's turn on the engine anti-ice. Modern airliners have some advanced flight management systems on board, which help to maximise the efficiency of the descent planning. The Managed Descent Profile, or VNAV, on Boeing aircraft calculates the descent path appropriate to the current flight plan routing. It considers many factors such as wind conditions, speed limits and altitude requirements. The aim is to keep us as high as possible for as long as possible, to keep us in the thinner air for longer, improving efficiency. The predictions can be very accurate, however one aspect it can't predict is when ATC gives us shortcuts. It is quite rare at most airports that an entire arrival routing will be flown, as it's usually more efficient and time-saving to provide a shorter route to landing. This can leave you vulnerable to having to struggle with high speeds and using the speed brake to lose altitude quickly enough after having your expected routing shortened considerably. This means it's best to use the flight computers as just another tool to help you, along with your rules of thumb, rather than trusting them completely. Now that we've calculated when to commence our descent, we use another rule of thumb to monitor our progress. It's very similar to our first rule of thumb, but starting with the distance instead. This time, we'll multiply our estimated distance to go by 3, giving us our target flight level. If we expect 80 miles to go, 80 times 3 equals 240. We would want to be at flight level 240. Let's say we get a shortcut and now only have 70 miles to go. We can quickly work out that we should be at about flight level 210. This method works well, but it's up to you to use what you're most comfortable with. Continue flying us towards Barcelona and use the rules of thumb to control our descent on your own without any ATC. Manage your own descent, going down as and when you feel it is right to. I'll update you as we go with the mileage remaining and the altitude you should be at, so you can compare your descent planning with the ideal.
T'inquiète pas! Enfoiré.
As we pass Pomal, we have 60 miles to go. 60 times 3 is 180. That means you should be at roughly flight level 180.
Elle a toujours raison. Intuition féminine.
Oui. Oh, eh bien, la disquette...
At Berger, we have 50 miles to run. 50 times 3, 150. So that's flight level 150.
Tu l'auras. T'inquiète pas, moi je l'aurai, et on sera à égalité.
chance. Minable.
We're arriving at waypoint Mammoth, giving us 30 miles to go. That's a target of flight level 90. Descent management comes with experience and practice. It works with any aircraft type, so once you get the hang of it, you can use this skill in all sorts of scenarios. We'll leave it there for now and return once we're starting to configure for the approach into Barcelona.
Putain.
Welcome back. We're in the descent into Barcelona, on our way down to flight level 90. At around this point of the flight, 10,000 feet, we turn on the seatbelt signs and instruct the cabin crew to secure the cabin for landing. Cabin crew prepare the cabin for landing.
Jetliner 488, expect ILS Zulu, runway 24 right.
ILS Zulu, runway 24 right, Jetliner 488. ATC have told us that we're going to land on runway 24 right by performing the ILS Zulu approach. Enter this into the FMGC by clicking Flight Plan to display our current routing. Next, click on the button next to LEBL, the ICAO code for Barcelona, written in white. Next, click the top left button where it says Arrival. This brings up a list of all the available arrivals in the navigation database. Now, use the up arrow to scroll through the list of approaches until you find ILS 24 right Zulu. Click on it once you find it, being careful to select the correct approach. After selecting the approach, you see it displayed in yellow on the ND. Press Insert to activate this approach. Once below 10,000 feet, our 250 knots speed restriction applies. Select a speed of 250 knots.
Jetliner 488, descend altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1010.
Descending to altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1010, Jetliner 488. Set 4,000 in the alt window on the FCU and pull for open descent. Just like switching the altimeters to standard during the climb into the flight levels, we're now switching back to altitudes. Push the baro knob and set a QNH of 1010. Great, now we're back to using altitudes for our height reference.
Jetliner 488, direct to Tebler.
Direct Tebler, Jetliner 488. Press direct on the FMGC and enter Tebler as our direct to waypoint. You can type Tebler in directly or scroll through the list to find it, pressing Insert. Good, this cuts out most of the arrival and gives us a better idea of our distance remaining. It's pretty grey outside. Turn on the landing lights to make us easier to see.
Jetliner 488, speed 210.
Speed 210, Jetliner 488.
$2,500.
Before landing, we use the FMGC to activate the approach phase, which allows the FMGC to control our speed on final approach. The approach phase will activate automatically when we reach the decel point on the ND, or you can activate it manually. Let's talk about how we decelerate and configure the aircraft for landing. On the PFD speed tape, notice the amber-coloured equals sign. This represents the maximum speed for the next stage of flaps, called VFE next. Before extending flaps, we make sure that our speed is below VFE next, otherwise we'll overspeed the flaps. A typical deceleration profile for the A320 begins with extending flaps 1 and setting a speed of 180 knots. Once we're on the approach, we'll extend flaps 2 and take 160 knots. Let's start configuring. Check your speed is below VFE next on the PFD and select flaps 1. We can get a big boost in lift from the flaps, known as ballooning, but allow the autopilot to take care of this. Now select 180 knots.
Jetliner 488, descend altitude 3,000 feet.
Descending 3,000 feet, Jetliner 488.
$2,500.
Jetliner 488, turn right, heading 170.
Right heading 170, Jetliner 488. Set a heading of 170 in the FCU and pull to select. Keep a selected speed of 180. For this approach, we're going to follow the ILS. Before doing so, we need to ensure that the correct ILS is being displayed. Please check that the ILS ident Bravo Charlie Alpha is displayed at the bottom left of the PFD, which is the correct ILS for runway 24 right. If not, you have the wrong approach selected in the FMGC, which will need changing right away.
Jetliner 488, cleared ILS approach, runway 24 right.
Cleared ILS approach runway 24 right, Jetliner 488. Now that we're cleared for the approach, arm the approach mode by pushing the approach button on the FCU. Now the autopilot is ready to capture and follow the localizer and glide slope.
Ça ferait de moi le numéro 1.
Lock mode has engaged, which will capture the localizer. Glide slope mode captures and descends down the glide slope. Now extend flaps 2. And bring us back to 160 knots.
2,500.
Looking good. Gear down. Now that the gear is down, arm the spoilers. Now set flaps 3. And finally, flaps full. Now push the speed knob for managed speed.
Et je me sens nerveux.
Speed target is now magenta, indicating we're in managed speed, giving us our target approach speed.
Jetliner 488 cleared to land, runway 24 right. Wind 210 at 16.
Clear to land runway 24 right, Jetliner 488. Landing checklist. Cabin secured for landing. Auto thrust speed. Go around altitude 3000 set. ECAM memo, land no blue. Landing checklist complete. Now disengage the autopilot and fly manually. Now fly us down to the runway visually. At 50 feet, look to the far end of the runway. Then smoothly raise the nose a little to reduce our descent rate and move the thrust levers to idle. After touchdown, allow the nose to gently lower onto the centre line. Auto brake low is selected, which will handle the braking until we're nearly at taxi speed. We'll exit to the right.
300.
Eh bien, juste entre toi et moi.
200.
Et je me sens nerveux.
100.
Look to the end, flare, and thrust idle.
40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
Allow the nose to lower smoothly. Passing 70 knots, press the brake pedals to disengage the auto brake. Slow us down to a taxi speed below 30 knots. Take one of the exits to the right.
Tu l'auras. Tu l'auras.
Well done. When we return, we'll look at how to taxi in after arrival, parking, and shutdown.
Maintenant, quoi?
Je vais te trouver!
Jetliner 488, runway vacated.
Jetliner 488, hold short of Tango.
Holding short Tango, Jetliner 488. Now that we've cleared the runway after landing, taxi forwards but hold short of taxiway Tango.
Hein? Avance.
Come to a stop here.
Mais
Whilst we're stationary, let's perform the aft hold us still until we get taxi clearance. Whilst we're stationary, let's perform the after landing flow to prepare for parking. Great, this has us mostly set up for parking, so now we need to taxi to our stand.
Jetliner 488, left on Tango, Foxtrot November, parking stand 104.
Tango, Foxtrot November, stand 104, Jetliner 488. Take this left turn onto taxiway Tango. Stay below about 15 knots as we're making some sharp turns.
mais
We're on taxiway Tango now. Please take the next right onto Foxtrot November.
absolutamente.
Turn right here and we'll be on Foxtrot November. Now continue straight ahead. Our stand is on a jet bridge just up ahead.
Maintenant, quoi?
Je vais te trouver!
Turn right onto stand 104 and turn off the taxi light to avoid dazzling the ground staff. Now crawl onto the stand, no more than about 5 knots. Stop here and set the parking brake. Turn on the APU bleed. Turn off the engine 1 master switch. And now the engine 2 master switch. Now that the engines are running down, turn off the beacon light, which signals to the ground crew that it's safe to approach the aircraft. Finally, turn off the seatbelt sign so that the passengers can stand up and collect their bags.
Maintenant, je pense
Good
différemment.
job. You've brought us from London Gatwick to Barcelona, all with real techniques and procedures. This flight was very typical and routine for the average sector, but now we'll move on to when things don't go quite so smoothly.
Oh. Et je me sens nerveux. Oh.
You need to stop the engines to request ground services.
Tu parles comme une cible.
Welcome to Lisbon. We're going to look at how to handle an engine failure at takeoff, an IFARTO. A lot will happen over a short period of time, so let's run through the actions. When an engine fails, the thrust from the remaining engine will make the aeroplane want to roll and yaw towards the side of the dead engine. This means that if the left engine fails, the plane will yaw and roll to the left. Once an engine failure has been detected, your job is to smoothly add a small amount of rudder to stop this yaw and roll. Too much rudder will cause yaw and roll to the other direction, which is also undesirable. Once you have enough rudder input, hold the rudder there and avoid making any big changes. Whilst this is going on, accurately set a pitch attitude of 12.5 degrees and keep it there. That's the first small pitch index line above the 10-degree mark. Keep on climbing like this until we reach our engine out acceleration altitude of 1,500 feet, at which point lower the nose and maintain 0 vertical speed. Flying level allows us to accelerate and retract the flaps once we're above S speed. Then we resume the climb to 4,000 feet and set MCT thrust. I'll prompt as needed. We're looking to maintain our current runway heading as much as possible, wings level and just the right amount of rudder.
Jetliner 665 cleared for takeoff, runway 21, wind calm.
Clear for takeoff runway 21, Jetliner 665. Release the parking brake and we'll give it a try. Perform a takeoff with toga thrust. Thrust is set. (100 knots). B1, rotate. Engine failure. Stop the yaw with right rudder. Bank angle.
1,000.
Try and maintain runway heading.
3, 2, 1,
That's
20.
Putain.
Welcome to Lisbon. We're going to look at how to handle an engine failure at takeoff, an IFARTO. A lot will happen over a short period of time, so let's run through the actions. When When an engine fails, the thrust from the remaining engine will make the aeroplane want to roll and yaw towards the side of the dead engine. This means that if the left engine fails, the plane will yaw and roll to the left. Once an engine failure has been detected, your job is to smoothly add a small amount of rudder to stop this yaw and roll. Too much rudder will cause yaw and roll to the other direction, which is also undesirable. Once you have enough rudder input, hold the rudder there and avoid making any big changes. Whilst this is going on, accurately set a pitch attitude of 12.5 degrees and keep it there. That's the first small pitch index line above the 10-degree mark. Keep on climbing like this until we reach our engine out acceleration altitude of 1,500 feet, at which point lower the nose and maintain 0 vertical speed.
Eh bien, juste entre toi et moi.
Allows us to accelerate and retract the flaps once we're above S speed. Then we resume the climb to 4,000 feet and set MCT thrust. I'll prompt as needed. We're looking to maintain our current runway heading as much as possible, wings level and just the right amount of rudder.
Jetliner 665 cleared for takeoff, runway 21, wind calm.
Clear for takeoff, runway 21, jetliner 665.
Tout est en ordre,
Release
Seigneur.
the parking brake and we'll give it a try. Perform a takeoff with toga thrust. Thrust is set. $100 knots. B1, rotate. Engine failure, stop the yaw with right rudder. Now hold the rudder in and set 12.5 degrees pitch. S right rudder. Now hold the rudder in and set 12.5 degrees. Nose down to 12.5. More right rudder. Now hold the rudder in and set 12.5 degrees pitch. Positive climb, gear up. S right rudder. Try and maintain runway heading. OK, now lower the nose and fly level, vertical speed 0. That's too much heading drift, please restart. OK, now lower the nose and fly level, vertical speed 0.
Fille enfoirée.
Couldn't find valid airport data at this position. Services are not available.
Welcome to Lisbon. We're going to look at how to handle an engine failure at takeoff, an IFARTO. A lot will happen over a short period of time, so let's run through the actions. When an engine fails, the thrust from the remaining engine will make the aeroplane want to roll and yaw towards the side of the dead engine. This means that if the left engine fails, the plane Welcome to Lisbon. We're going to look at how to handle an engine failure at takeoff, an IFARTO. A lot will happen over a short period of time, so let's run through the actions. When an engine fails, the thrust from the remaining engine will make the aeroplane want to roll and yaw to Welcome to Lisbon. We're going to look at how to handle an engine failure at takeoff, an IFARTO.
Et toi, hein? En qui, toi, confiance? Personne? Tout est tout seul. Comme moi.